Welcome to Season 5 of SEL in EDU. This is a space for educators who believe social-emotional learning isn't an add-on. It's part of how we teach, lead, and show up every day. I'm Dr. Krista Lay, and in each episode, we'll explore real stories, practical strategies, and the human side of learning that helps schools grow with intention. Perspective is a powerful thing. It shapes how we interpret student behavior, how we respond to challenges, and how we decide what truly matters in education. Sometimes a small shift in how we see a situation can completely change how we support the people in front of us. In today's episode, I'm joined by Thom Stecher, an educator and consultant who has spent more than 40 years helping schools step back and reconsider their lens. As one of the original developers of the nationally recognized Student Assistance Program model, Thom has worked with students, educators, administrators, and school boards across the country, always returning to one central belief: that education works best when we keep people at the center. Our conversation explores how perspective influences school culture, decision-making, and the balance between academic outcomes and human connection. Thom reminds us that when we shift how we see students and staff, we often shift what becomes possible for them.
Hi, Krista.
Hello, Thom. I'm so excited that we have a chance to record because we're calling these couple episodes SEL in EDU to be continued. We had this amazing conversation a couple weeks ago, and it would have been great for the podcast. So we're circling back around again and talking about perception, possibilities, action, and purpose. Can you share for people who are listening what led you to put those four words together?
15 years ago, I was asked by an assistant superintendent in a school district, would you do a keynote for us? I said, sure, happy to do that. Back to school kind of thing, motivational. And I said, what would you like the topic to be? He said, well, do anything you want. It's wonderfully empowering and really challenging. Most of my thoughts were around wellness of the staff. However, driving to the event that early morning, this idea comes to me. The voice in my head says, talk about perspective, possibilities, purpose, and passion. The rest of the drive, I'm formulating what I'm going to say. You know that I always arrive places early. I get there early and I'm jotting down notes in the parking lot, little scribbles. And that's what I went with, and it was wonderful. I kept working with that, and that brings us to today.
We're going to start with perspective and what that means. And I realized in my notes that I wrote perception, but they are similar.
They're the same root word.
Perspective is one of the skills under social awareness. And I think it's important to think about, we can also have perspective on ourselves. So I do think it can be under self-awareness as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If we have a strong perspective and the ability to take perspective, we're able to achieve.
I'm so glad that you used the word foundational. So many things begin with perception. Perspective leads to understanding, leads to empathy, leads to compassion. When you say that perspective is part of social awareness, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. Our perspective is our worldview. How do I see this diverse society that I live in, this world society? That's critically important to self-awareness. I need to have a perspective on myself. You do work on yourself every day. I do work on myself every day. Most of the books I read, the first series of notes I make are about me. What's the author saying to me so that I can grow and learn more? Every morning, I do many things in my meditation practice, but one of the things I do, I read a passage from the Enneagram every day about my type and what I need to do today to be the best version of myself. I think perspective goes all the way to responsible decision-making.
Ooh, tell me more about that one.
So responsible decision-making, as I drill down into that, it's about making choices. To make a healthy choice, I have to have a balanced, healthy perspective.
Yeah.
And so many of my role models have taught me that. I think we probably could dig deep enough, and I'll ask our listeners to think about this. Maybe perspective is a part of every competency in social emotional learning.
I often feel that whole responsible decision-making category, while I understand its purpose, it's a complex set of skills that really deserve their own time to be broken down into micro moves. We have the skills under the other competencies. I feel like here's the skill, and then what are you doing with it?
Yeah.
Where responsible decision-making comes in. One of the pieces that really hit me as I was looking at it is that our experiences, our emotions, our beliefs shape how we perceive the world. Our perception is how we make meaning of information coming to and how we interpret.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me similarly to when we look at emotions, that your emotions are innate things that come up in your body, but your feelings are how you interpret those emotions. Social emotional learning gives you that space between the innate and those experiences and the interpretation.
Frankl talks about that. Stephen Covey talks about that. It's that 1/10,000th of a second from some event, some experience to how am I expressing my feelings? What am I sharing? I have this emotion. It's probably bodily. There's a feeling aspect. Then what do I do with that? That's where choice comes in. Stimulus response. One of my favorite formulas is events plus response equals the outcome, which is from Jack Canfield. One of the things that's always interested me with responsible decision-making, I think it's a cumulative thing. So self-awareness, we have to start there. And that moves up to self-management, then social awareness and relationship skills. Relationship skills, a deeper dig under social awareness, really making a vulnerable, more intimate, trusting commitment. I cannot be a good, responsible decision maker with some level of awareness and expertise in the previous four. I think our world right now is abundant with poor, responsible decision makers.
Because they're lacking those critical foundational skills.
Exactly. Self-management, self-awareness is not there. People lack caring for each other, social awareness. So that's always kind of moved me, that idea.
When you were talking about leaders, that linked to something I had not considered before in some of the research. How does lack of perspective influence our behaviors? And that could be a good or a bad thing, but the two pieces that came up that really intrigued me was Harold Dweck's work around a growth mindset.
Okay.
If our perspective, how we interpret a challenge based on what's happened in the past, or how we see effort that we put forward as either being failure or growth, our past experiences, if how we look at things, our perspective is either, and there's a bit of hope in here, if I do this, here's what's possible. And that's why we're going to talk about possibilities in the next one. My past experience shapes my perspective that I don't have agency.
You mentioned two things that really resonate with me. The first is hope. Please, let's come back to that. I think it's important. And there's a lot of people writing and researching around hope right now. The other piece are these limiting beliefs. We always have a choice. In the worst possible situations in our life, we have a choice. That brings me back to Hans Selye's work with stress management and the whole stress cycle. We have this thing happens, blank happens. The first step is my assessment of that. I saw it in my own children growing up. I had one child who X could happen, and it would be a major emotional event. And I had another child, the same exact thing could happen and no reaction at all. So our assessment, we have so much power in that. Folks are not aware, and I honor and respect everybody who's going through challenge. As you know, the greatest challenge of my life has been the death of our daughter. And in that moment, of saying our final goodbye, coupled with the tremendous grief, there's also this transformational experience, this spiritual experience, this one with the universe experience. I don't share that often, but Susan Cain's book, Bittersweet, really sums it up beautifully. There's an assessment. Who do I want to be right now? What do I want to do right now? I want to blame and lash out? No, I don't. To honor my daughter, who was not that kind of person. She was unconditional love. So I want to emulate that. Those choice moments in our life. I would love people to dig deeper and explore how important and powerful those choice moments are. They happen all the time.
And I think in hearing what you're sharing, thank you for sharing that moment where both things were happening at the same time.
Yes.
There was grief and something bigger.
Yes.
Our choice can be to accept both at the same time.
Krista, what you're sharing right now, I think, is critically important. We actually are more innately both and than we are either or. The either or comes from societal structuring that has been imposed upon us. We need to reclaim that both and. We see the both and in the innocent child all the time. Both feelings are expressed. Society tries to box us.
So you bring up an interesting piece about complex emotions and how they're uncomfortable. Oftentimes in schools, we're talking about building emotional literacy with our students, letting them move beyond those core 5 innate emotions and exploring the beauty that is the feelings, which often combines those emotions together. I'm wondering if some of that is because we're not comfortable sitting in those more complex emotions, and it's easier to just pick something that's more, I'm mad, I'm sad, instead of exploring that further, because perspective taking does ask that you go beyond what you're comfortable with. What you feel, you already know.
Yep.
To go into certainty.
That moment where we take a breath, where we pause, you're really talking about mindfulness. Mindfulness is not only sitting on my floor meditating. Mindfulness is taking those moments, taking that pause and say, wait a minute, I'm feeling both of these. Both of these things are true. And I don't have to act. I don't have to respond. It's okay to sit with this. We're applauded to drive. Wait a minute. Human being, not human doing. I just need to be here for a little while. So many of the great teachers have talked about that. We don't always have to do something.
My mind is going right now because I think about the times where I've gotten an email and I'm like, I need to respond right away. It's easier to walk away from a computer. You feel a pressure to respond right away, but that's us putting that on ourselves. I need a couple minutes to rethink this or to have a pause and collect my thoughts. It hits on something else around people's willingness to change, the flexibility, the adaptability based on perception. If they feel that their identity is being threatened in some way, they're not seeing, here's an alternative strategy or here's a different path. They're hearing what I'm doing isn't good enough.
So much in there. The idea of educators through professional development, helping their students understand the things we're talking about right now. That's growth. As we grow and change, our perception expands, which is something that both of us love. You know, that's why we keep reading. That's why we keep researching. At every interaction we have, there's an opportunity. That brings us to the whole social awareness piece. You are a traveler. You and your husband love to travel. That has been proven to expand our perception, expand our social awareness, respect for life, and developing empathy.
Oh, so yeah, I'm so glad you brought up empathy because a book called Stoic Empathy talks about two different types of empathy. She describes it as cognitive empathy and affective empathy.
Okay.
Affective empathy is the compassion, the acting on something. And she describes cognitive empathy as the logic behind it. Like you understand why somebody's doing something. And she actually says is perspective taking. So I know you and I have done lots of research around empathy and different people's perspectives at logical empathy. Maybe you're not feeling their feeling, but you can understand why they're feeling that way or why they're doing what they're doing.
Fascinating. You mentioned understanding twice. There's helping our students understand, and first the adults in PD, this idea of perception. It's not a hard and fast, this equals this. It's a continuum. Our perception leads us to understanding. As that understanding develops, my empathy expands. And then, of course, where we take action, there's compassion. I'm pretty sure in Brene Brown's newest book, she mentions those two concepts, the cognitive empathy and the affective empathy. That was new to me. Cognitive empathy is understanding.
Yes. It's seeing somebody else's viewpoint.
Yeah.
Or the idea that they have a different viewpoint that's valid. Sometimes I might not understand where somebody's coming from, but I understand that's their truth. And I'm okay with it because mine is different.
Think about how empowering that statement is when we bring it as a lesson to our students. This person over here, this student over here, we have different perspectives. Let's talk about that. Let's really help each other see what that is to at least come to that place of cognitive empathy. Then if there's an affective empathy, that's kind of like ice cream on a cake.
That goes back to your point about the classroom within a learning experience. We're making space for the both and in discussions, in conversations. Oftentimes it seems that we feel we need to get somebody to change their mind.
Yeah.
To get perspective. I don't think somebody has to change their mind to have perspective. And maybe that needs to be a goal for our learning experiences, for our classrooms, for our workshops, that there is space for both.
That's transformational education. If we can have our friends who are listening now talk to each other, talk to you and I about that possibility, I really think it's transformation. These are relatively new ideas to bring into the classroom. When we're speaking here, I'm seeing opposing forces. And there's a beautiful few lines by Rumi, one of my favorite poets. Out beyond doing and wrongdoing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. That's honoring both places and finding that middle ground, very, very Buddhist concept. I'll find that middle ground. I don't have to agree with you. I just need to live with you.
Yes. It reminds me of a conversation I had with my sister a couple weeks ago. She's like, here's why I think this. Here's why. And I'm like, I get it. I really do. But I would not have done the same thing. I would in a different path. I'm not saying that I just can't get behind your path, but I understand all the experiences, the emotions, your lived history until this point.
Yeah.
And mine brought me somewhere else.
It is okay for both parties. And can we honor that? If that brought your sister a level of health, a level of joy, a level of comfort with who she is, great, perfect. What you're talking about now brings me to one of the latter prompts. You asked, what signals tell you someone's perception is limiting rather than expanding them? It's our health. Our bodies and minds and our emotions have been proven to be interconnected. There is no separate. So I'm checking my health. I'm checking the basics, blood pressure, heart rate. Are they in that nice, healthy range? If they're not, there's a clue. Something's going on. my perception, my attitude leads to this larger world view. And the questions are simple. Am I happy with my life? Am I happy with myself?
Yeah.
At this point in my life, my answer is yes. And I'm so grateful. It just brings on more good. I'm full of joy because I've done this work. I continue to do this work because it never ends. I like that. That makes me happy that it never ends.
And you brought up gratitude, which is a skill within social awareness, so making more of this network of connections. And I think the health part, you're spot on. And I love that you started there because I immediately go to the thinking process and behaviors.
Okay.
And I don't always think about the health part, but then that's how sometimes we need to listen because that's where it's manifested.
Yeah.
When people have this language that's, well, it never goes this way, or everybody thinks this. And as soon as somebody speaks in this absolutist language, I'm like, covering for something, like you have a perspective you're holding on to, feeling the same way. It goes back to the idea they don't have a choice.
Yeah. When folks in my world make those big global statements, that turns me off as well. However, I remember my really great teachers and therapists back in my 20s. If I would make a statement like that, or in a group therapy session, someone else would make a statement like that, they would simply say, turn that into an I statement, please.
I love that response.
And there it is. Boom. There's the responsibility. And I really can't act. Responsible decision making. I cannot act until I've gone through all these previous competencies.
When we use that type of language, we're actually cutting away part of the validity of what you're sharing. And you might have a really good point.
I think that kind of language disempowers us.
Share more about that.
When I talk in generalities, I'm not owning anything. I think I am disempowering myself. Ownership is power. I don't mean power over, I mean to be empowered.
Let's go back to this idea of hope, because
yes,
a dear friend of mine researches hope, Nico Samakalides. The piece that resonated with me that he talks about with hope is that there's power and willpower. Do you see a path? Do you see that there are options? Do you believe in yourself and your ability to go down that path? Do you believe? If you don't, you're not empowering yourself. You're not giving yourself that sense of efficacy that you can be successful.
So these are new concepts to me. Way power, that's the vision. That's what I see. That's my possible choice or choices. And then the willpower is the movement, the action.
Yes.
So I'm heading down door number 2, whatever it might be. I like that. I like that a lot.
That's the easiest way that I could summarize the research that he read and shares. And he goes into it way deeper than I can. We don't just have hope, that there's pieces that come into play. Part of that, I think, is perspective taking. You have a certain self-perception. You can see where other people are coming from and what other pathways are available to you. And that's the possibilities we're going to talk about.
So I want to dig more into this hope idea because I'm finding it in the newer books and the newer research I'm reading now. The only time I ever heard anybody talk about hope was in church, faith, hope, and charity, or love, hope, and charity, something like that. I'm so glad it's coming up as almost a new concept. My perception of myself is I am a hopeful person. Hope is made up of my perception, my past experiences, my beliefs, what has formed my identity, my track record in life, good, bad, indifferent, the whole map of me. It comes down to choice again. It comes down to every day. I choose to be hopeful. Why did I, a 73-year-old man, wake up at 6 o'clock this morning? I'm going to swim a mile and a half, then do strength training for another hour, along with my meditation and yoga. I've told Sandra, if she ever sees me just sitting around doing nothing, that means I'm in trouble. So please speak up and kick me in the butt.
Well, and so that goes back to what happens when someone's perception is limiting. For you, that's a sign for you that you're not up. It would be interesting for people to think about their own signs. And let's link that to Brene Brown talks about her value system. It's not just what does it look like when you're living in your values, but what does it look like when you're slipping is a core piece of self-awareness that this is what it looks like when I'm not feeling hopeful. I'm losing perspective.
In her book, Dare to Lead, she digs deeply into values and provides the reader with a tool to narrow down our top 3. She goes further by asking us, what are examples in my life where we're living in those values? And what are examples in life where we're not? And I think she actually uses the word slippery slope. I'm going to ask our listeners to think about that for a moment. What is that slippery slope? For me, it's making excuses, particularly around the food I eat. It's the holidays. It's only a few days. And then before I know it, I've slipped back into those unhealthy eating habits that eventually got me into open heart surgery. The great news for me is I know a possible negative end result of those choices. Knowing that helps me to make that shift of time to get on track, Tom. No more excuses. I'm always on track with the exercise, but I can easily fall down the slippery slope around what I eat.
I love that you were able to put that into a specific example. I think I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
That's actually 2 different theories coming together, because there's a behavior theory that says you have to change your behavior and then see the outcomes to change your mindset. But SEL comes from like a social cognitive theory that's more change the way you think and your beliefs will change your actions. And they can work hand in hand.
I'll start with this cognitive piece that needs to change. Let's put the plan in place, your friend's vision, way power, create the way power, create the path, and then make a choice and go down. Or behavior first, 12-step programs around for 70 plus years, fake it till you make it. Just practice a new behavior until it becomes part of who you are.
I wonder if people tend to lean towards something. I know for myself, I need to generally change my thinking before I'll change my action. I'm more in my head and I need to reason something out. And I also think that I'm able to take perspective more easily than some other people can. But I wonder how many of our listeners can be like, I'm definitely needing to change my behavior first.
Head first or behavior first. I think my current perception of myself is my head gets me in trouble. It rationalizes and minimizes, and there's this internal battle. I'm more at a place in my life where, okay, change that behavior, Tom. Let's go. Let's just do that. This is a beautiful example for our listeners of both and. It's not either or, whatever works for you.
And so that takes us back to this idea of perception, how we always have a choice.
Yeah.
I want people to know too, that sometimes we're in a situation that just sucks. We'll think this is awful.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like we have a choice. And we might not see that right away, but it is there. It's a different shift in perception. Or it could be a small action, a small change in behavior that accumulates over time.
Yeah.
And when I think about our students, you can take a survey that tells you your hope level.
Wow.
You need to work on your willpower or your way power. And our students sometimes might have the willpower, but they don't see the way. This links back to research from the Search Institute around developmental relationships.
Right.
A huge piece of it is that adults are helping students see all the possibilities that could change their perspective about school, about behavior, about other people.
I go right back to Viktor Frankl's life. He talked about, 3 concentration camps, in World War II, last one being Auschwitz. And yet he found this moment where he stopped asking himself, what did he need to get? Did he need to grab somebody's boots who had just died? Was there another piece of bread somewhere? He changed to asking himself, what's needed of me right now? What does the world need from me right now? He tells us in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, that saved his life. That attitudinal shift from me to let me find out what's needed of me. How can I give? How can I serve? He enhanced the lives of many people in Auschwitz. The choices he makes, he says the last of all human freedom is to choose one's response. There he is talking about that ultimate choice point. That's where all our freedom lies. The only moment we have is now. If I'm living in the future, I'm creating anxiety for myself. If I'm living in the past, I'm probably creating guilt or depression or some other nasty thing that's not good for me. At 73, I'm still working on living in the now. And yet, that's our most powerful place to live.
While you were talking, it was reminding me of two core memories, and never experienced anything to the level that Viktor Frankl did.
Yeah.
We have known each other for 20 years now. I'm pretty sure I was 27. And I remember 2 times where I was in your basement sobbing, and at the life skills conference, totally broken down. And it was why is this happening to me? Feeling like I didn't have choices. Like, what did I do to have this happen? A shift for me started when I started thinking, what can I learn from this? What can I take away? How can I use this as a stepping point?
Yep.
One of the pieces that kept coming up as I was looking at perspective is the idea of curiosity. When you're able to be open to perspective, it allows you to continually be curious and questions, be reflective, and not shut off.
Thank you for sharing that experience with me. I do remember that. What's important is the choice you made that brought you to a healthy place. Then you bring up this favorite word of mine, curiosity. I'm married to the most curious human being in the world. She's always asking how things work or what's this or what's that. We also know that along with travel, curiosity is an aspect of developing empathy. How can I be empathetic cognitively or emotionally with you if I'm not at least curious? Nothing would register. I would just go on with my day. Curiosity is critically important to responsible decision-making, to innovation, to relationship building, to systems. It's so important. Curiosity is essential.
This idea of curiosity killed the cat is a way of squashing curiosity.
Oh.
Sometimes what we do in schools when we want compliance, yet we want critical and creative thinkers. And so it's hard to teach students to be more open to taking perspectives if we're also pushing back on curiosity. Those two skills are related, and it's up to us as facilitating that learning space, whether it's us with teachers and staff or staff with students, to lean into curiosity and be open to perspectives.
So if I had a relationship with the staff where there was a trust level, I would ask them what you're asking right now. Do we really want curiosity and creativity? Hopefully the answer is yes, because curiosity and creativity are messy. They're not compliant. Think of some of the greatest curious, creative people in history. I go right to Da Vinci. Absolutely not compliant. Always moving on to the next. Wouldn't he be a handful in school right now? Yes, I understand that there are places for compliance. I get it. Inappropriate behavior is inappropriate behavior. But we're talking about this thing called learning. I don't know about compliance and learning. I don't think they fit together.
And asking those questions and exploring that path can lead us in new directions we hadn't experienced. When we shut that off, we're shutting down the learning, we're shutting down opportunities to grow in perspective.
I like to go back to the original definition of the word education. The Latin word for education is educare, and it literally means to draw out. Education is not shoving information in. Education is drawing out that curiosity, drawing out that creativity, drawing all those social skills and emotional skills out of that child.
That requires a perspective that says we can learn from the students.
Yes.
From us.
Yes. That's what, I mean, so we do student voice days, and I know you do student work as well. If I'm going into a high school, I'm their age of their grandfather. But I tell them, I want to learn from them. It's an opportunity. Not many people in their 70s have a chance to sit down with teenagers all day long and listen to them. It's a wonderful, uplifting experience.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Some of the pieces that have been jumping out at me that I need to continue to think about is that perspective requires us to have a both and mentality, and not just a thought process, but actually live that. We make that come to life in our workshops, in our classrooms, in our schools. Thinking about, do we lead with a behavior change or a thought change? Leaning into curiosity and knowing that we do have choices, no matter how big or small they might be.
Yes. And all the choices are powerful. They all lead to learning.
Sometimes we think that our actions, our thought, or our behavior isn't going to take us anywhere.
The takeaway for me is the hope path your friend talked about.
Way power and
way power. That's really important for our students. I would pass it on directly as your friend has identified it and help people explore both of those avenues. What a great learning experience that would be.
Well, I think that's a great segue into our second talk together. What was your takeaway around perspectives that you were hoping they were going to walk away with?
What I hope people come to is more of a middle ground rather than us and them. I like this idea from Stephen Covey. He says, private victories always precede public victories. The work I'm doing inside, the perceptual work of who am I inside, always precedes something positive outside. If I want to change a situation, thinking about our students in conflict, thinking about our teachers, if I want to change a situation, I need to change myself. And if I want to change myself, I need to change my perception. So it comes right back to that core again.
That's powerful because that's within our control.
Absolutely.
The hope is that we might be able to influence people in a very positive way with that shift in ourselves.
We'll know by how we feel, by our own health.
Your next shift was talking about possibilities.
Yes.
How does a shift in perspective open up new possibilities?
The idea of possibilities came to me through our daughter, Ashley. Medically, she was identified as severely, profoundly retarded. I know we don't use those terms anymore. However, that's what I heard when my beautiful little girl was assessed at 2.5 months old. My perception was she's beautiful. She's completely trusting. I came to learn day after day that I was in the presence of unconditional love, and that never changed throughout her 39 years. So my perception was, okay, I've got this diagnosis over here. That's real. I need to deal with that. My little girl is a gift. She's helping me be a better human. Everyone around her says how they feel better around her. So there's the both. And that's where I started. Oh, so what's possible for all of our learners? What's possible for that non-reader? What's possible for that child who has mathematical difficulties? What's possible for that child who looks different? What's possible for that child who doesn't know our language yet? I think possibilities, and I know we're going to explore it in depth, continues us down this both and road.
Love how this has evolved.
Yeah.
We started off with just following your gut when you're in the car about to walk in and do a keynote in front of hundreds of people. And you're like, I think I need to change this to the 4 Ps. And we had a couple guiding questions in a lot of different directions and uncovered more. And I'll be interested when we're done to see what those themes are and if this both and follows us into some of the other pieces as well.
Excited about that.
I'm excited to hear more about Ashley when we talk about possibilities.
Yeah.
Impact that she had on everybody, sharing memories of her.
Oh, wonderful.
And thinking about how we can open up possibilities, not only for ourselves and our own learning, but for our students as well.
Thanks for this time together.
The special episodes we had here with Thom and I talking are called SEL and EDU. We're going to take a pause and reflect on what we've learned here and take that into our next conversation. So until then, everyone, take care of yourself. Think about how you're living in the both and. Thank you, Thom.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the